Hello and welcome to Washington Exec's video series. I'm Amanda Ziada with Washington Exec, and with me today is Max Peterson. He's the Vice President of AWS Worldwide Public Sector. Thank you so much for joining me today, Max.
Thanks, Amanda. It's great to be here with Washington Executive.
Awesome. Well, great to have you. So we know AWS is preparing for its annual Public Sector Summit on the 28th in Washington, D.C. What can you tell us about the event?
Well, number one, we're super excited about being able to get back in a hybrid format with in-person participation and really robust virtual participation. It's going to be a great lineup. For people who want to come and learn in person, we'll have over 150 breakout sessions with talks from some of our most innovative customers and from AWS technologists across the board. I'm super excited about our main stage keynote. We've got two really great female leaders joining us. Lauren Kassenberger, who's a CIO from the U.S. Air Force, and then also Lisa Stocksdale, who is the director of the Utah Department of Health and Human Services Office of Recovery Services. And they're both going to be talking about the things that they've done to respond to COVID, but also what they're doing that's super innovative that drives their mission forward. Which is one of the key themes of this learning event. It's the opportunity to hear from people who have come through the other side of all of the work in this terrible COVID-19 pandemic and found new ways to innovate on behalf of their customers, their citizens, their students. So that's all super exciting and again, a great opportunity to learn from a number of folks. And then the other thing that I think is exciting and very interesting is we're also going to be highlighting artist Suchi Reddy, who is going to be doing an interactive artwork demonstration, something that we call You and Me. It's an interactive sculpture that's actually powered by AWS AI services, and it's going to debut in person down at the Smithsonian Arts and Industries building in the fall, just around the corner from now. There's really something for everyone.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And this will be your first in-person event since the start of COVID. So how has the COVID pandemic impacted cloud computing?
Well, the pandemic, first and foremost, was an unbelievable challenge. It was a challenge on so many different levels. It was a challenge for our customers. It was a challenge for students who suddenly had to switch to virtual. It was a challenge for our healthcare. It was a challenge for all of our employees. The one thing it made most clear, however, was how important it was to have the right platform for your IT innovation. And those customers who were already on AWS cloud services, they were able to move much faster when they had to switch to this virtual mode. Whether it was entire school systems or entire countries switching to remote learning for their students, whether it was, individual health systems or entire nations who needed to figure out how to do COVID-19 testing and test kit distribution, and now more recently, vaccine and vaccine management. It was an incredible challenge. Those people were on the cloud, were able to move in very fast, effective new ways. Those people who were just getting started, we tried to start helping them on their journey. And the things that I think that people learned is that this new mode of in-person and virtual interactions is probably here to stay as we manage through the remainder of the COVID-19 pandemic. You have to be flexible, you have to be agile, you have to be quick, and importantly, your IT systems like the AWS cloud have to be the underpinning of sort of modern digital government, modern digital health, modern digital education.
Absolutely. It does seem like this hybrid model is here to stay. And you mentioned the event will showcase some groundbreaking public sector innovations born out of adversity over the last year and a half. So what are some of the key areas where you've seen customers move fast and innovate?
Sure. There's three areas that we'll touch on today. And as I mentioned, there's over 150 different sessions. So if I hit ones that aren't particularly right up your alley, be assured that when you come to the conference, there's a wide variety of things. But the three areas that you can't help but recognize the difference. First one's in health. Obviously, it's a pressing issue that's on top of everybody's mind. And technology here had been slow to be adopted in many respects. And this is where COVID-19, it just threw open the doors because people had to solve problems immediately. Telehealth probably advanced 3 to 5 years in terms of adoption as that became the new normal. Different research abilities, data sharing abilities. We sponsored something called the Diagnostic Development Initiative to start using the power of cloud computing to help find the solution to COVID-19 infection and vaccination. A couple of examples, MedStar Health, who's one of our customers here in the Mid-Atlantic. They're the largest provider. A month after the outbreak started, they started delivering outpatient telehealth solutions to over 3,500 patients a day. Think about that. I mean, close to 0 to 3,500 a day using telehealth in less than a month, right? And they quickly launched 2 call centers. No longer did we have everybody in person. You had to launch virtual call centers, one for providers, one for patients, to be able to provide lab results. This was all done in less than a week using AWS's cloud-based contact center. We call it Connect. And in another one, and probably the largest scale, was the work we are doing right now with the government of India. We were really privileged to work with them from day one as the pandemic unfolded. And today, the system that they use to manage COVID-19 vaccine management for the entire country is a system called CoWIN that runs on AWS. Originally, we saw an uptake of 1.9 million people in the first week that it opened. And it's targeted at reaching the entire population of India. So over 1 billion people. It'll be the largest vaccine management system out there. And they passed a milestone last week where the system enabled them to schedule 22 million vaccinations on the same day.
That's incredible.
It is. It's been rewarding to be part of these national solutions. And our team on the ground in India has worked tremendously hard. I'm very proud of the partnership they've got with a very broad community there. I would say the second area is education. We talked about it a second ago, but literally from school systems to nations, we had to shutter schools, and you couldn't allow that to stop learning. It wasn't feasible to bring our students together anymore in a classic campus or a classic classroom basis. So everybody had to figure it out overnight. Those systems that were already using some form of cloud computing had a leg up because they were able to have the underpinning of the digital technology, and they could focus on the student and the educator experience. The University of California state system used AWS to provide a cloud environment to scale up more than 500,000 students across 23 campuses. Again, the order of magnitude on these things is just astounding, and the speed was pretty amazing too. At Boise State, the College of Engineering turned to the AWS team, and they set up a virtual computer lab for all of their engineering students. Wow. So that they could go ahead and continue accessing all of their specific software programs, formerly all done in a physical lab, except now in a virtual environment. And this enabled them to continue all of the studies that they were doing without disruption. And then the final area is in government, where governments, in their effort to serve citizens, had to really adopt a much more digital approach to the work that they were doing. Remember the timing of the pandemic here, the US, it was the period of the elections. And so both the Democratic National Convention and the Republican National Convention pivoted quickly to use AWS to be able to provide their online national conventions. And there wasn't any room for failure in that. They had a very limited time frame. They had to make sure they had really tight information security, and they had to be able to scale up to massive levels. We're actually very proud to say that we were able to do our part in helping both of those conventions use the AWS cloud services and use it very successfully in the delivery of those events. And the other one that we're also very excited about because of what you can learn from it is the work we did with the Small Business Administration. We had to assist them to put up a cloud-based portal to start processing all of the loans that were administered through the Paycheck Protection Program. It's one of those things that is an essential service for citizens who were affected by the pandemic in the U.S. And the fact that the U.S. Small Business Administration could partner with us and that we could deliver in a very tight time frame with very high standards is a testament, again, to the things that we had to do. And now we're able to take those learnings and through conferences like the one we'll host next week, share them, with thousands of people.
Yeah, that is amazing. It's incredible to hear the magnitude of transformation that took place over the past year and a half. And speaking of, I know in December of last year, AWS announced a commitment to train 29 million people by 2025 in cloud computing. What's the latest since you've made that commitment?
Well, we were super excited about that announcement last year, and the team's been making great progress so far this year. They've done it through a number of different things. The first one is by using our training programs where classes are delivered in hundreds of different formats, from digital self-paced training to full-time intensive skilling programs. There's really something in it for everyone. Whether you're new to the cloud or whether you're an experienced professional, we've got some of the richest curricula out there to help you learn how to use cloud computing, learn how to use AWS. We've continued to work on the goal for the free skilling by refreshing, renewing, and extending a number of our standard programs. And so excitingly, we've actually doubled our AWS Restart program's global presence. Restart is it's a 12-week free intensive program to prepare underemployed or unemployed individuals for careers in cloud computing. And I think what's actually most important is the success rate. The success rate is more than 90% of all graduates get out of that 12-week program with a job interview opportunity. And that's really the point of our skilling programs. Another example is one called She Dares, which empowers women to pursue careers in tech. We've delivered sessions like Machine Learning Essentials for technical decision makers. We're doing training on our service called Twitch, which is yet another way to be able to interact with content and be able to target people where and when they're interested in learning. And then we're working through a number of government organizations to deliver training and skills programs through some of the things that they do. We formed a partnership with the state of Texas and the Texas Association of Community Colleges to enable access to the cloud computing courses and curriculum and certifications. We've also continued to find innovative ways, new ways to introduce different cloud training and different curricula. A lot of it through AWS means, but also in combination with partners. Really, when you look at the skills and education and training gap to get to jobs, it's got to be an effort that involves multiple companies, multiple partners. It's got to involve government. There's just no one single way to do it. So we're really proud and excited of the work we're doing, and we're looking forward to announcing more information soon.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's so great to hear everything AWS has going on. And looking ahead, what are the tech trends that we should be watching, especially post-pandemic? And what do you think the next 10 years will bring?
Wow, that's a tall order to guess 10 years out in advance. Here's what I'm going to suggest. Mm-hmm. The first thing we talked about briefly is that you're going to find that organizations, business, government, education, not-for-profit, healthcare, everybody has to find their new way in this sort of dual mode world. You need to seamlessly provide a way for your students, your citizens, your patients, your doctors to be able to interact both in person, because it's still very important. A number of the things that we do require some kind of in-person interaction, and people are used to that in-person interaction. There is something very human, in being able to connect directly with one another. And there's some things that you simply have to be in person to do, right? But at the same time, everybody is looking for a better digital experience. And that's the place where our customers and our partners in AWS hope to share on the learnings that we've seen. So the first one is really, you've got to plan for a world where in-person and digital can come together almost seamlessly for your constituents, whether they're students or citizens or patients. The other thing about that is it opens up a lot of new opportunities to continue innovating. And the reason I say that is because if you look back 18 months, we as individuals, we weren't used to doing remote work at the scale that we've now become accustomed to doing in the last 18 minutes. If you look back at students, there's a number of things that you would not have believed were going to work in a non-campus environment. And if you look back on our personal lives, right, as patients, the same can be said. But if you put that to the side and you look at the innovation that's occurred, there's really phenomenal capabilities that I believe are still yet to play out. And the thing that I find sort of most interesting and most heartening is that a number of these technologies have served to increase the reach to people who didn't have access to services in person. And so when you think about massive populations around the world that are in rural areas, by merging that experience, whether it's health or education or government, with online and digital, suddenly you deliver actually much better services to all of those populations than you did previously. And I think we're going to find a lot of new opportunity, a lot of new innovation there. For the next 10 years, I started with AWS almost 10 years ago. And so I've got the perspective of 10 years of being in the business, but it's really difficult to forecast 10 years out in the future, but I'm going to give it a try. Here's a couple. The first is in 2018, we launched AWS Ground Station. We really believed that there was a way that we could start helping democratize space. And it turns out in 2 short years, we've seen a tremendous increase in the interest in figuring out how you merge sensors on the ground with satellites on orbit and back to computing, analytics, and machine learning and image recognition and response on the ground. So that's been one area that in 2 short years has really taken off, and I believe that will be one of the next trends ahead for the next 10 years. I think one of the other things that you've got to acknowledge is that we really started to see the value of data analytics, machine learning, and AI as we moved into the COVID pandemic. The Diagnostic Development Initiative was able to give people access in a secure manner to larger data sets so that they could do their analytics in a more robust fashion. And I think that organizations around the world, some of whom we're very fortunate to be working with, are finding out that in areas where they can exploit shared research, think about genomics, for instance, in areas where you can exploit the power of shared research, again, in a secure, controlled, cloud-based environment, you find out that you can move much further ahead. So I think there's a lot of applicability in the decade ahead that you're going to see for us to be able to better understand and better deliver anything from vaccines to citizen services to better ways to do personalized learning through the use of big data and analytics. And I think undeniably that's going to be something that shapes the next decade ahead as well.
Absolutely. And this past year is any indication of how quickly things can move forward. There's certainly a lot to look forward to going in the future. So, well, thank you so much for giving us such a great preview of the AWS Summit happening next week. We look forward to seeing some of the great things that come out of that event. It was great having you here today.
Amanda, it was awesome. Thanks to everybody at Washington Executive for hosting this interview.
Of course. All right.